Hey guys, Alan and Dylan from Two for the Win here, and yesterday we got the season 5 premiere of Samurai Jack, so let's talk about that. But before we do, this review will have spoilers from the new episode, so if you haven't watched it yet, do so before watching this review.
Overall, I can only describe this episode as effective. It very clearly reestablishes Jack's previous motivator, obviously, which was killing Aku, getting back to the past. It goes over why he strayed from that objective. They mention how he lost his sword, of course, they show that. Definitely sets up a good precedent for having excellent action scenes. There were, two in this episode alone, both done very well, I think. Both very exciting. I love how the first one, effectively Jack's RoboCop. In the first one, because he comes out in a full set of, samurai armor, and then he has a freaking motorcycle, and he just starts mowing through people with guns, of all things.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this when we saw the episode, but I really hope they cover how he got these weapons and the motorcycle. I hope they don't expect us to just believe, like, oh, they just came from somewhere. No need to investigate that at all, because that's a potentially good episode they could have explaining how he came across, that weaponry. I'm sure he wasn't doing absolutely nothing over the past 50 years.
He's been hallucinating and seeing images of his parents and people telling him how he's failed them. He's lost his sword, of course, which is the only thing that could really kill Aku. And basically, he's been broken after trying so hard to get back to the past and ultimately failing. And it really shows how even someone as dedicated and steadfast as Jack can waver given certain circumstances. I thought that was a good place for his character to be in at the start of the final season.
The art style, it's got a beautiful color palette so far in this show. Of course, heavy emphasis on, red and black, a lot of shadows, use of light to reveal certain aspects of a scene and not others. Excellently done there. Used a lot, especially when showing the cult. And it's interesting to see if this cult established around Aku, if Aku actually plays any part in it, because Aku doesn't show up in this first episode. I'm wondering if they're going to wait a while before having him make, a reappearance. You do hear him at one point on a cell phone, of all things. Aku has a freaking cell phone, apparently. I think that's kind of priceless. His assassin calls him up on the cell phone. Doesn't he say, like, who is this? Like, He doesn't even know. It's like, what? You didn't save his number in your phone? Your assassin's
your
number?
Your top assassin?
One of your top flute assassins. No, not even a number. What the hell? So, so there's a mystery surrounding not only the cult's, origins, the extent of their actual affiliation with Aku, but then as well as the vision Jack keeps having of this other samurai that's just several times throughout the episode, and we have no idea. I don't know who it is. Do you have any clue who it may be?
I don't really have any idea who it could possibly be, but to comment on what you were saying about the animation, it does look like the animation from the original series, only a lot more smoother, a lot clearer, basically an improvement. Some little things that really stood out to me in this episode were the blue aliens from the opening scene, who I honestly thought were just kind of adorable with their electric emoji language. And of course, Aku's top assassin, who was honestly just really fun to watch, and he honestly had a lot of personality to him, just in the way he talked, the way he fought, the way he looked, just all of it. It was really entertaining to see this guy in action, which kind of sucks because he's a one-off character.
Yeah. He was like the Pied Piper of death, basically.
Yeah.
As far as those blue people go, though, that sort of bothered me a little bit, their emoji language.
Yeah.
It was funny, but at the same time, that's such an ineffective language to be able to only display like a word or a little picture, like one at a time, basically, as it goes, as the electrical signal passes from antenna to antenna. Gosh, that's just, how do you have a normal conversation? You have to be staring at the person the whole time. And then why do they have mouths then?
It is a legitimate possibility that they could show up again in either a cameo or whatever. I don't think they're going to become allies of Jack and help him fight off Aku. They look more like just people trying to survive.
Yeah. It'd be nice if that came back later, though, and they helped in some way or another, whether or not, maybe they have a little village and Jack at some point seeks refuge there. Characters can certainly be put to use in some way, or else it's kind of cheap in a way to care about them solely because, obviously they needed help. They're being chased by robots, but then to not use that anymore other than for the little intro just seems kind of like a waste. We don't really need to understand that Aku is evil at this point.
One more thing that I loved about the show is that it isn't afraid to be more mature than the original series, which is why Gendy Tartakovsky, if I'm pronouncing it right, the show's creator, wanted to make the show on Adult Swim instead of Cartoon Network. And I think that was a pretty good decision on his part. Like the graphic nature of the hallucination scenes really sell how much Jack is suffering in his current state. And of course, the brutality of the cult's training really show how the Daughters of Aku really mean business and are definitely gonna give the samurai the fight of his life in future episodes. I certainly hope the Daughters of Aku will be more than just people for Jack to defeat and kill. Like, they're not just gonna appear, Jack's gonna defeat them, and then they're gone for good. I want them to either, like, make reappearances throughout the final season or even come back as, like, Jack's allies.
My prediction is that at least one of them, I think, will turn on the cult and become allied with Jack. At least one, because I think at least one will come to understand, like, oh, wait a minute, like, he's not the one going out here trying to abuse people for the sake of some giant freaking demon thing. He's trying to, just help people get the crazy freaking guy out of power, you know what I mean? Now, it hints, though, that any moment of, human compassion and weakness, like during the training process is forced out of them. You have a scene where one of the while they're still children, one peeks from the crack of their cave dwelling that they're in and sees outside and how beautiful it is, and then immediately gets punished for it. They get punished for trying to help one another during training. That's another important scene. And then they get abused by some giant, different than any other cultist. It's like a giant, exceptionally buff cultist, and it's like, is this person gonna come back? Like, this has got to be a villain at some point, like a kind
of like the right hand lady.
Yeah, pretty much, because you don't see her in any scene other than the ones where she's helping to train these children by punching them in the face repeatedly. And then you just see the shadow of it on the wall. Stirring scene, that's for certain. Now, the only comment, though, about having it on Adult Swim is I'm curious how well it's going to end up doing financially. I mean, now, has it been confirmed that they've already made all the episodes, or are they still like a work in progress? Are they taking into account feedback from the audience?
I think this is the final episode. I mean, final season. I do believe this is the final season, and that they've already made all the episodes.
They've already made it. Okay, well, hopefully then Adult Swim doesn't do some dumb things like Nickelodeon's known to do and give up on it midway through and not advertise it or something like that. Hopefully it all gets to air on TV. Nothing of the sort happens.
One last thing I want to say about this episode was that the fight choreography was amazing. The action sequences kept my attention from start to finish. There was no moment where I was bored during the fight scenes and stopped paying attention, which is something honestly worth noting because a lot of shows that try to be very action oriented, the scenes tend to drone on or be uncreative to the point where you just kind of space out, and I'm glad Samurai Jack isn't one of those shows.
And the choreography allows you to still see all of it, whatever they want you to see in the frame is in the frame, It's not jumping all over the place. It's not like a shaky cam action movie where you can't hardly tell what's going on. You have a easy, clear view of everything that they want you to have a view of. So a couple questions. I don't know if you know more than me. Why is Jack not affected by time?
We don't seem to have any real explanation for it yet, although it most likely has to do with how Aku sent Jack into the future. Maybe that process made him immortal. Again, nothing's confirmed yet, but that does seem to be the possibility.
And if Jack's not affected by time, how did he grow his gross depression beard?
That is honestly a very good question.
You're breaking the rules already. Come on now. I know it's just for a gross depression beard, but come on.
If he doesn't age, then why does he get that gross depression beard?
Because that means, his cells are experiencing time. They're growing hair,
And we've seen Jack eating in the original series. Does he have to eat now that he's immortal, or what? He did say he doesn't age, but does that affect any other bodily functions?
Yes, awaiting clarification. Hopefully we get some. Last question. Any theories on where the sword is? Prediction right now. The blue people that you think are useless have the sword. No, I don't know about that. But can we actually add in one other thing?
Oh,
though?
yes, yeah.
And you mentioned this yesterday, but you didn't
Right.
mention it when you were typing that up.
Yeah.
The potential that Jack might have to actually kill someone. Because if he's
Right,
fighting these 7 cultists who have obviously, they've already killed the Daughters of Aku. They've already killed because they killed the previous, cult members. And Jack comments specifically like, oh, all of Aku's people, they're always just nuts and bolts, nuts and bolts. They're just robots. So there's certainly a potential moral dilemma for Jack if he, kills one of the Daughters of Aku, and then that could definitely take a toll. That could push him over the edge. Honestly, he's mentally unstable as it is. Or I mean, that'll certainly affect, I think, how he'll go about fighting them if he doesn't want to rely on killing them and he has to try to incapacitate them in some way. Again, a potential moral dilemma, or at the very least, it'll affect his style of fighting. Definitely make it even more difficult for him, and it already is. It's 7-on-1. I mean, we're assuming they all are fighting him at once. So, and again, I'd be interested to see if one of them gets separated from the rest of the group and then perhaps gets to know Jack a little better as well as the outside world a little more and then changes sides. I mean, I definitely think there's a potential for that. If they didn't do something like that, I would think that would be a potential, lost.
I do believe there are 3 possibilities for what happens after Jack kills one of the Daughters of Aku, which it does seem to be an inevitability. 1, he either snaps and just kills them all, or 2, it does throw him over the edge a bit and he kind of runs away. Or 3, and this is the one that I'm sure will happen, after he kills one of them, he realizes what he did and he'll try to talk them out of trying to fight him, which will probably work on the one that was given the most character development in the show. Ashley will be the one to defect from the Daughters of Aku and join Jack, and it will only be after Jack kills one of the daughters and realizes his mistake and tries to ultimately settle this without trying to kill anyone else.
Well, definitely looking forward to next week's episode where he's fighting the 7, cultist, daughters.
The Daughters of Aku.
Yes.
Yeah, this episode was amazing. I loved every part of it. The animation was great. The fight scenes were great. I like where they're taking the story. Samurai Jack is back for its final season, and I have a feeling it's going to be great from start to finish.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it, definitely.